Hey guys, this is James, Tim, and Barker with Tabletop Terrors and Be a Better Game Master, respectively. Disrespectively. Today we are doing Splatbook Roulette with the Edge of the Empire Star Wars role-playing game from Fantasy Flight. There's a lot of stuff in here, so this Splatbook Roulette is going to be fun.
So stay tuned.
Alright, so you can press the button because you were so excited about that last time.
I'm gonna.
Yeah, so Splatbook Roulette is where, if you've never seen this before, we're going to flip to a random part of this book and give you some advice for a tabletop RPG. Now, I am going to say straight away, I've never played Edge of the Empire, so this is going to be really good. And I am going to be the person who doesn't play Edge of the Empire, edging the advice toward agnosticism.
System
Agnosticism.
You might even say you're edging it toward the agnostic empire.
Oh, I would never say that.
I know.
I would never. You're just ready to pull the trigger.
Yeah,
This
of
guy's
course.
Like,
I've been so
You got
ready.
somewhere to be?
You give a man a button to push, he'll push the button.
all right,
It's true.
do it big. All right. Do you want a point?
No.
All right.
Come on.
Okay, alright, for your book.
Okay, ready?
I'm not going to bend the pages this time.
You gotta stop.
Bend the page.
Lore, intellect.
Oh, yes.
I don't know what that means in Star Wars. Tell me. Give me a tip, fellas.
What I like about lore and intellect is that this is a part of the running a game that a lot of people struggle with as a GM. Okay, from a GM's perspective, it's easy when you're talking about combat and physical encounters for someone to just roll a dexterity check.
Right.
But sometimes when it comes down to intellect in a game, some people have trouble with having players roll dice for intelligence or knowledge, things like that.
See.
And I think my auto advice is always, when it comes to the physical abilities, like let's say D&D, even though we're talking about a Star Wars book.
Sure.
Let's say D&D. Physical ability, strength, dexterity.
Well, that's basically it. I mean,
Constitution, yeah.
maybe, but I'm like, no,
Sorry.
strength and dexterity.
Yeah. But when it comes to those things, you have them roll dice. You roll dice and accomplish your check or not.
Got it.
When it comes to intelligence, you appeal to the player's intelligence.
Yeah.
You make riddles for your players, not for their characters. So that kind of goes against the statistic. Like
Yeah.
if someone has a high intelligence, but they're actually an idiot in real life, they're not going to do a lot of the puzzles correctly. But I think that makes a more fun time around the table
For the player. So,
yes.
in Star Wars and D&D and any of those, if you have a player that has a really high intelligence, how do you justify that? Because this is a good tip. What if I have an 18 intelligence, but I can't figure out the riddle? Do you roll and give them clues? I mean, what's a good way to kind of find the balance? Is there a balance? Or do you just leave it entirely to the player?
So I think this is an important thing to note. As far as riddles and certain things, a riddle for me is for the players, not for the characters. You know, that's the fun part, is the players figuring it out. And on the flip side, as a player who has played low intelligence or relatively low intelligence characters, when riddles come up, I've realized that it's no fun to sit on the sidelines because you think your character wouldn't know it. Yeah. Now, with that out of the way, what I would say is find other ways to use the intellect score. So the idea being, if characters are playing, you're in a role-playing encounter, and the group comes up to somebody and somebody asks them, well, I mean, surely you know about the Rylock drug trade, and the character's like, well, do I know about that? Now, here's the important thing. Your player shouldn't necessarily need to know or remember all of your lore if you gave it to them. Even if you did, it's the kind of thing where this sentence sort of works wonders. And you can have them roll, I think. You would see if their character knows about that. But they roll, and you say, okay, you rolled relatively high. So what your character would know about the Rylock drug trade is X.
Blank. Right. And Matt Click does a good job of that with a fistful of dice. He'd say, well, you would probably remember that when you were in this town, this person said this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I like that helping hand because I play in a few games.
For sure.
So here's another piece of advice. Using intellect or using that kind of thing. What if you skin it so that there's something that needs to be done intellectually during combat? What if there's a specific thing that needs to be fired, like a weapon, and the lock on the weapon is, you have to be from that area and know certain things that only the townsfolk would know. So basically the smart person is the only one that can go, okay, it's this many letters, this is the answer, fire the weapon. Just kind of come up with a way to make the intellect work in a physical combat.
Yeah, similar to the strength. I have to lift this out of the way so that we can escape. It's like, I have to figure out this equation, to make sure that this thing doesn't blow up in our faces or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The same thing happens because you as a player aren't actually lifting something heavy.
Yep.
So not always, like you said, for riddles and things, I think you should keep that out of it if that's what your players are in for. But in the same way, it's like, well, you wouldn't give them an, what's that really hard math? Calculus equation. Like, hey guys, so I wrote a riddle for this. It's really just calculus, so good luck.
Yeah,
don't roll for it. Sorry.
You really have to figure that out, or we're not going to...
Differentials and
I'm going to go watch
whatnot.
Netflix.
But I think the intelligence during combat really applies for things like finding a monster's weak spot.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing more about a monster.
That's a great way to do it.
Like in Dark Souls, you know that the backside.
Yeah,
all the time.
Roll, stab.
The butt.
Roll,
Baby got back,
stab.
and I'm going to stab it.
Now we have 30 seconds. Do you want to talk about lore a little bit?
Sure.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, so using lore in the game is something that you have to, I think, liken unto real life. Meaning, don't forget that not everyone knows everything, even in the real world. If you ask somebody who the vice president is today, they might not know.
Exactly.
And that's sad.
Even if you've told them, even if you've given them something, like you said, that helping hand we mentioned earlier is really good to always, your characters know stuff, so as a DM, you should...
James interrupted me to failure.
I owed you one.
Yeah, you did.
By the way, I think our vice president is that guy that looks like Emperor Palpatine, right?
It's Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
It is
Frank Stallone.
Vice
No,
President
but our
Palpatine.
president's Darth Vader, isn't he? He said okay. That's how he says okay.
But specifically with lore, I don't know much about Star Wars.
Yeah.
So we already failed, so we're just riding this train.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
good.
it's,
Sweet glide. What the point I was making is, don't be afraid to give them that NPC's opinion of the lore, or that the town they're in. If that town, say for instance in Ankea, if you're in a dwarven city, they're not going to think too highly of the elves. So when you ask them something about the elves, you can, as a game master, color it with that. Say, oh yeah, that's trash, that's tripe, that wine. Pff. Meanwhile, it's 200 gold a bottle, 2 towns over. It's okay to color the lore with opinion because that's just real life.
And you gave me a tip a while back when we were talking about Hallow Hall. It's a dwarven city, and you recommended that maybe the elves call it Hollow Hall.
Yeah.
To kind of take this hall that's hallowed from the dwarves. And no, it's called Hollow Hall to the elves because they think the dwarves are dicks.
Yeah.
Jerks.
Well, and that is a good way.
Penises.
I think it's a good way IRL because in real life that's what people do. They come up with slang, they come up with derogatory terms. So as far as your character, don't worry as a game master if they're like, oh, they rolled a 20. Oh, okay, I have to come up with some actual factual real world lore to give them. It's like, don't misguide them, but don't be afraid to go, actually, you know what you do know? In this region, you realize that wearing the color blue is actually frowned upon because of the Blue March or the Blue March Riders or something where it's like in LA, if you're wearing blue, you're a Crip.
Yeah.
Like it's like a thing, it's a symbol, it's like
Not even a Dodgers fan.
not even a Dodgers
Not even
fan.
a
And
Dodgers.
the important thing about that is, I think that information like that, especially regionally or those slangs, are things your players are really going to remember. Rather than if you said, well, actually, the March Riders, or they wore blue because of this. It's like, no. Yeah. Don't tell them what it is. Tell them what this person tells them what it is.
You do that. You guys do that a lot. Some say, in the Dragon book,
Some
Deep
say.
Vault, some say, some posit. Many believe.
Many believe.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's it. So using the intellect score, let players feel smart, but also let them figure it out. I love that advice. And don't be afraid to do what James was saying before, which is just come up with something cool and figure out why later.
I also love that on page 122 of the Edge of the Empire book, they did a really good illustration of Jared Leto from Mr. Tomorrow.
I keep looking at him, and I think he's Princess Leia.
It's Jared Leto, who looks like he's doing the mime in a box.
No, there was
Minority
a movie.
Report. He's Tom Cruising.
He's Tom cruising around.
He's Tom cruising the strip.
Cruising for ladies. No, there's a movie that Jared Leto is in. He looks just like that. He wears a shirt just like that, I think.
I bet you
it's called
they
like
copied
Mr.
it.
Tomorrow or something. Mr. Nobody, maybe.
Mr. Nobody?
Mr. Nobody.
I think he's a good actor. Do you think so?
I like him.
Me too.
I like him in general.
I like him in 30 Seconds to Mars. Don't tell anybody I said that.
No, I actually, you know what? I'll tell you right now. There's a documentary.
Oh, it's so good.
You will appreciate 30 Seconds to Mars, whether you like their music or not. It's called Artifact.
Nice.
And it's their journey in the record industry getting out from underneath their label. And it is an insider look at how the record industry works.
Oh, gosh.
but it's so good because it made me respect them as a band so much more.
Yeah, and him as an actor, just everything. You know, I was
So
like, oh wow,
check out Artifact.
cool guy.
But this has been Splatbook Roulette. This is Barker. I'm Tim. That's James.
It's James.
It's James.
Oh no, monster! That was stupid.
That was pretty dumb. Like, subscribe, and just close this because we're all done.
Bye.
And until next time.
And until next time, Tim's out of the frame.
Double tap peace.
I was
Double tap piece.
I was scratching my back.
Tabletopterrors.com. Subscribe to